YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy Buddha back in the building for another Last Claudia discussion video. One that I am actually excited to get into because it's a bit different from what we've seen the past couple of weeks. Been a lot of news, info, build videos because of the, recent collab that just dropped in Last Claudia, followed by this Valentine's event. But today we're going to be doing something a little different, something I think is going to be pretty nice for all types of players getting into Last Claudia, right? New players for the discussion purposes, and if they want to get involved in the game, things to look forward to or know ahead of time, and for any other current players of the game's early, mid to end game, and just their thoughts on this topic, because I think it is very important for the health of the game overall. I mean, you can see the title, but we're talking about a topic that was brought up by none other than the homie Tweaks, yes, who goes by Sage Emperor Zekis on the Last Claudia official Reddit page. A discussion on game difficulty. Where does LC fit? So I was browsing the Discord logs, as I like to do in the morning, and saw that early in the AM my time, or technically last night depending on where you were, Tweaks was talking about this subject in the Discord, and after getting some conversation going around, it said, you know what, I'll go ahead and throw it over here on Reddit to see what the rest of the community thinks, and I figured it'd be fun to submit my response to this topic of discussion in a video format. Let's get into it. I'm going to read this through, give you my thoughts, and a little more in-depth analysis on how difficult I feel Last Claudia is in the parameters of what is talked about here. So, as it says, a discussion on game difficulty. Where does LD fit? On game difficulty, easy games can be a source of instant gratification. Little delay and satisfaction, but often fleeting and requires new stimulus afterwards. Hard games can be a source of delayed gratification, requiring time investment and learning, but with a greater and prolonged sense of achievement. If you feel like games don't last long enough for you, a challenging game will more likely hold your attention for longer. If you feel like games only serve as a form of entertainment, like unstructured play, then keep playing easy games. Fun is ultimately subjective, and there are plenty of easy and hard games that are badly designed, but someone somewhere will enjoy. Then he further goes to say, to start to understand the place of difficulty in game design, you have to understand how the human brain's reward system works. We as humans get bored really easily and constantly require novel stimulation. We're subconsciously smart about it too, as we'll always gravitate towards the easier way of feeling a sense of accomplishment. This is why, say, if you enjoy easy games that don't require either high skill or game knowledge, you'll tend to jump from game to game more often than when playing one that demands more player input or strategy. Why play a hard game when spend time and effort learning when you can play an easy game and still win? However, being presented with and overcoming challenges within your real skill level is almost always the bigger hit of dopamine. This is because in general the best games aren't necessarily the ones that are the most difficult or easiest, but the ones that can consistently put us into a flow state, a perfect balance of challenge and skill, which is a super desirable state of mind. It's really interesting. Goes along with your boy Buddha's philosophies, right? That flow state. As a gacha game, Last Claudia is incredibly hard to qualify as one specific difficulty. The difficulty is mainly subjective based on your views on what you want the game to be, as well as what you've acquired in the toolbox of stuff available to you in game, cumulative units, arts, equips, etc. Subjective views of fun and difficult. Difficulty can be super vast in games like this, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. And then these are the questions proposed that I want to personally give my response to. Just trying to instill some thought-provoking conversations. Comment below, so no comment from your boy Buddha, except in this video. Let's get into what I think. And of course, guys, if you want, I will submit the link to this post down in the comments to go check it out, right? I'm going to pin a comment. Go check it out if you want to comment on the post. Give it a like, because obviously it's a cool cool discussion topic that I think deserves some eyes. And if I'm not mistaken, this isn't like Tweaks magically coming up with all this. He did see this type of post on a different games Reddit that he's kind of bringing over here to LC to get our thoughts, so don't want to like steal credit where it's due. Not sure of the origins, but just want to preface that before moving forward. So your boy Buddha's thoughts, right? Question 1, where does Last Claudia fall on the spectrum? Easy, hard, somewhere in the middle. First, I want to define difficult, because I think people will read this and go into it with different definitions of difficult in mind. If we actually look at the definition, right, some people are going to be like, Buddha's an asshole. He thinks I don't know what difficult means. But I do think there is something of note to clarify here. Here, this first definition we're going to pay attention to, which I'm going to zoom into. Needing much effort or skill to accomplish, deal with, or understand. This is the definition I'm going into this post with, because in the actual definition, we're talking about both, right? Something that requires effort may not need a lot of thought to figure out. It just needs a lot of time dedicated into completing, right? That's how I'm defining effort. So with those two things in mind, that's how I'm considering difficult things in Last Claudia, right? Things that are either very time intensive or require a lot of thought and skill to defeat or beat in Last Claudia. So just keep that in mind as I continue my explanations here. So where does Last Claudia fall on the spectrum? Easy, hard, or somewhere in the middle? I think it's definitely on the end of a harder game. And why many new players who maybe your typical gacha players or mobile game players that like to play a lot of games at once, they don't really stick to Last Claudia because of this. For me, Last Claudia is a time-intensive game before you can really get those rewards and results, right? Kind of as it specifies in this little definitive post that Tweaks lays out, or defining post, right? Being presented with and overcoming challenges within your real skill level. It's the bigger hit of dopamine rather than completing things, becoming endgame very quickly, or defeating the final challenges very fast. That's not going to happen in Last Claudia. So for that reason alone, I would consider Last Claudia more on the hard spectrum of these mobile games that we see a lot, especially like little RPGs, in the sense that Last Claudia is, and theory crafting, building units. I mean, people are always going to argue when you're talking about a gacha game, oh, well, it's not difficult. You could just pay to win. Pay to win. Well, here's the thing with Last Claudia. Even if you somehow got a magical credit card that you swiped it, and then all of a sudden you got all arcs available to you, all the characters on your roster, Last Claudia is very unforgiving in the building process when you're starting out. So even as a new player, if you came in and swiped your credit card to get everything that's like relevant, all the top tier stuff immediately, it's still going to take you a pretty fair amount of time to actually build the arcs, build the units, get your material farming strategies down, teach the skills, increase the skill cost pools, farm up the materials in order to enhance and awaken your units, right? None of that can actually be paid for. That requires time and effort, aka difficulty to achieve in Last Claudia, regardless of how much you spend. And then let's not even talk about understanding the mechanics to their entirety. By using resources like Lake's gold mine site. So there's a lot more involved with truly understanding Last Claudia as a game and what it entails as a whole, which is why for me it pretty much leans toward the hard difficulty in most of these game spectrums. Question 2, what do you think of the overall difficulty of the game? Is it balanced, or do you find yourself getting bored and going to play other games? So I actually did draft up a little graphic for us here that we can see if I switch over to your boy Buddha's Photoshop work. I went ahead and found a typical S-curve, right, from Google Images. You can see that the y-axis is growth, the x-axis is time. And I think an S-curve really represents how Last Claudia develops as a game for most players. And so when we're talking about difficulty here, I want you to think of the more horizontal parts of the curve to be the more difficult times in your game progression, okay? So when you're just starting out, it is very difficult, aka time intensive, when you're building your core team, right? Getting your physical DPS, getting a comparable magic DPS, getting your support, right? Your first 3-man squad to help you push through story, getting a farming unit and then fleshing out, getting the tools and necessary resources in order to have a farming team, whether it be an auto farming team or a manual farming team, acquiring arcs, right? The acquisition of those core arcs. That's all going to take your players a different amount of time, but before you get everything that's quote unquote needed to progress in many of these areas in the game, right, that's going to be difficult because it's going to depend, that will require you to either spend or just get very lucky. And so this little first part of the graph, that may be extended depending on if you swipe your card or if you just get super lucky or very unlucky. You may be in this state of Last Claudia where you feel like you can't do anything just because you can't get what's needed in order to progress in a lot of the ways that I think propel you into the middle phase, as we can see. So now at this point, you can see your growth is shooting up exponentially because you've acquired the arcs. You now have like your soul tank you have your soul income upgraded. Your tanks are at a very decent level. Your reserves are at a very decent level. So you can now level your arcs. You are now fleshing out your builds, right? You're at this point where your kind of core teams, you've invested a lot of materials into them. You've got 90 or 100% of their ability board filled out so they can really accomplish a lot of things. And so now you're just teaching these newly leveled up arc skills to those units, increasing their skill cost pool because you've acquired mother souls. You're getting them to hit damage cap. You're overcoming your main world bosses that you were struggling with a lot. You're now farming materials more quickly because you have your auto farm or you have your farming team ready to at least be functional. Equipment acquisition, this is when you start getting your first big pieces of equipment by defeating those world bosses, by getting very far into the story, getting very viable different effects from those equipment, growing the unit roster. Right at this point, you've pushed story a lot. You've obtained a ton of free to grind crystals. You're able to summon or hoard and wait for the next big celebration to then dump, and now your roster has grown even more. On top of that, you've been doing your material farming. Since your core teams are pretty much fleshed out, you now can start focusing on other units, which allow for more strategies to be accomplished, and you're able to overcome a lot of those hurdles that felt impossible to achieve in that first part of your Last Claudia career. And now you're beating world bosses, you've pushed to end game, you have maxed out units, and that's why that growth spikes, because you're able to do a lot of the content that was perceived as endgame very quickly with those core strats. But then you reach the top of this growth curve, and what's left for you to do? Well, at that point, right, you've beaten all the world bosses, you've fleshed out a couple core teams, you've built out a couple of your favorite units, so now you can run different types of strategies if you want, some mage DPS, some different types of physical DPS, ailment spammers, or just raw DPS. So now you're at the point of min-maxing strategies, which is kind of correlated with things like arena, right? Getting your arena team to a point where it's just a simple, repeatable process in order to climb the ranks to Super Gold 1. Time trials, that is the ultimate, that's pretty much the pinnacle of competitive LC gameplay, because now you're at a point where you want to build out the most amount of units, right? You want to flesh out your entire roster so that you have all of the resources available to try and make the pieces work together in order to compete and finish this challenge the fastest. Godforge grinding, right? This is less so related to skill, right? I'd say min-maxing strats, time trials. That's more skill difficulty. How well do you understand the game's mechanics? Godforge grind is just another one of these time-intensive grinds, which translates to difficult in my mind, and it takes a very, very long time if you're not just slaving away at it. So that's going to be another very, very slow progression. AER farming, there is no way to quickly do it. This is just a constant auto farm grind that you got to be running in order to get all of your Arc Ether rewards from your arcs. It's not that it's necessary, but it's just part of the completion process on anyone's account. So that's where, once you get to that true end game status, those are going to be those time-intensive, high-skill, high LCIQ tasks that you are left with after getting through that burst of growth that you see kind of mid to early end game as represented in this chart. So getting back to that question too, what do you think of the overall difficulty? Is it balanced? I don't think it's unbalanced. I just think that's a pretty typical game progression. If I'm thinking about the overall span of games that I've ever played, right? There's this moment where you're learning all about the game, then a lot of the puzzle pieces click together and you're able to enjoy the game because you're making progress really quickly. But then you will eventually hit that ceiling where it's like, what do I do now, right? It's not like I can push story. It's not like I have daily things to do so much. It's more about making what I already have achieved better, and that's typically a very slow growth. So I would say it's balanced. I think there's definitely improvements that could be made to the end game portion to make it a little more of a fun experience overall, because that's when I feel like in the beginning and at the end is when a lot of players are going to get bored and move on to other games, because it just doesn't feel like you're accomplishing much if you're not head down like Tweaks does, right? There's not a lot of players like him that get into the nitty-gritty of the mechanics and will spend hours tweaking little things just to see if he can get a different result, right? It's not like he's farming up the godliest weapons or beating the hardest challenges at that point. He's just playing the game in order to min-max, which I think a lot of your average players, even myself, will start to drift away at that point. So I think that's when Last Claudia loses a lot of players, or in the beginning, as this post mentions, for those players that don't really want to get into a grind that requires that heavy investment in the beginning before you can hit that high progression level. They're just going to drop the game immediately. I think those are definitely the two sectors when the game is going to lose its players. And then question 3, what are your goals for the game? How or why has it kept your attention? So for me, your boy Buddha, of course, right? I do enjoy those heavy investment games that require at least that long-term learning in order for me to understand it or get to a comfortable place where I can then explain it. And also, of course, for your boy Buddha, you guys have held it down, kept me coming back to the game just to keep playing, talk with you guys about it, report on my findings, and learn together as a community. I think that's been one of the most rewarding things for your boy in this entire Last Claudia journey. And of course, chasing this YouTube dream. Last Claudia has helped me, and I'm very, very thankful for that, which does keep me coming back to it. But I'm definitely at that top of the curve, which naturally, your boy Buddha is not like a min-maxer or a super-duper grinder. So it just doesn't appeal to me so much in that sense. It's more so the community that has held me in the game as long as it has, and the content that I've built around it. So I'd say that if I didn't make videos on the game, I would probably be a very casual player, just kind of logging in, not really farming, not really leveling my entire roster, not god forging every item. But because I'm a content creator on it, now I'm a little more invested in those processes. But I'm definitely on the spectrum of players that would probably be drifting away from the game if I wasn't doing that. So that's gotta be your boy's response. Again, I wanted to make this video not only to give you my thoughts on this topic, but also hopefully to give some perspective to any new players looking to get into Last Claudia and setting up their expectations, right, for what a player that's been in for over a year has experienced with the game. Many things have changed since I started playing. I think that first progression, right, if we go back to the actual chart that I made, this first little hurdle when you're starting out has definitely shrunk compared to like my memory of how it was, because of the different units that they've introduced, because of the different resource material farming strategies that they've introduced. It has sped up a lot of that initial progression. However, still understanding the game mechanics, getting those arcs, fleshing out your builds, that is still going to require a lot of time and effort and learning from you before you're able to experience the fun part, right? The middle of the graph, when the game, I think, is at its peak of enjoyment. So just keep those expectations in mind. If that's the kind of game you like to play, LC will not disappoint. And you know your boy Booda is going to keep coming at you with content to help you out whenever I get some information that I would like to share with you guys. That's all I got for you this time. Hope you enjoyed this different little discussion video. I haven't done one of these in a while. Like, subscribe, bell notification, turn on all notifications if you want to know exactly when I post. Y'all know the drill. And with all that being said, y'all know what we say. Work hard, play harder. See you in the next video.